Hi, I'm STÖK, and I love learning new stuff. And the best way to learn new stuff is actually, talking to people. Or at least that's the thing that works for me. And I've always been interested in things that makes people do creative stuff. I mean, take Capture the Flag for once, where you're creating this challenge that somebody needs to break, and then the evilness that goes on in the mind of somebody that creates CTF challenges, because they're cool and they're hard and there's so much things that goes into it. And so I decided to have a conversation with a gentleman that's really good at this and created some of the coolest, at least bug bounty related CTFs that I've been able to participate and play around with. His name is Adam Langley, and we're having a conversation here. And this conversation is going to be about 1 hour, so it's a long one. It's a different format than the things that I normally do. So maybe you want to do this in bite sizes, I don't know. Anyway, as well, this episode is also sponsored by the amazing people over at Integrity. If you want to dig into and, start hacking on some European programs and getting paid in euros, I would suggest that you head over to go.integrity.com/stoke and sign up and get hacking today. But other than that, let's just jump straight into the conversation. Hi, Adam. How are you?
Hey, dude. Yeah, really good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Are you in Exeter now?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've lived down here for about just over 5 years now.
Okay. How far is that from London? That's the only city in England that I know of.
On the train, probably about like 2.5 hours or something, and driving about 4 or 5 hours.
Pretty sweet. That's really cool.
Not too far.
So you've been an ethical hacker and a security-focused developer for, 20 years now? Is that how long you've been in the industry?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I kind of started off in the late 90s when I was a teenager, just kind of getting into security and development. But yeah, I'd say kind of proper, like doing it for a job, probably about like 16 years now.
Wow, yeah, it's a long time. I've been in the industry for 25 years now, and and that's time flies. So I read a blog post that you wrote in 1999. So we're going back 2 years now, where you mentioned that the 15-year-old you sitting on a dial-up modem back home for the first time in your life clicked a Trojan. A sub-7 Trojan that a friend of yours sent to you. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, totally. This is totally the starting point of my security career. My friend, another Adam, sent me a Trojan. I had no idea what it was. I opened it and nothing happened whatsoever. And then suddenly my screen flipped round, my CD drive was ejected, there was text on the screen, and it just totally blew my mind. I just had to know how it was happening and what was going on. My only vision was something that you'd see in like Hackers, the film. But yeah, I just had to know what was happening with it.
Yeah, we all been down that route, and those rats kind of exist still to the day. It's called cool C2s and really other, but it's still rats, right? You're loading some kind of malware in a system, and then you can control that system and do whatever you want to do with it. Exactly. So that was your ignition into the interest of cybersecurity. Were you ever poking at stuff at that time, or did that come later?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of, it probably started off at that point. I mean, I've always been quite passionate and interested in how things work. And I've always stuck around with my dad when he's been like servicing the car. So I'd be outside with him at like 5 years old and with him explaining to me how engines work, and probably the only kid in school who knew what a distributor kept was. So yeah, I think that definitely like forced my passion for learning how stuff works. There was always kind of a long running joke, which still goes now, which my mum says that she doesn't trust me to leave me alone in the house because I'll pull things apart just to see how they work and not always know how to put them back together again.
So it's a lot of curiosity that drives you.
Yeah, 100%.
Can you still repair a car though? Cars changed over the years.
Yeah, not modern cars. No, no. Still know a good amount about how they work, but it's mostly computers these days.
Correct. Then you plug something in, you upgrade the firmware, and suddenly voila, it does
Yeah,
some magic. It's
that's it.
pretty interesting how that works. And that is something that we definitely should talk about. And hacking cars. Hacking cars is something that actually people do. I know a couple of people that spend a lot of time on doing that because it's not this as safe as we think they are.
No, actually, I mean, interestingly, that goes back to a past job of mine. So before I started working for myself as a consultant, I was a technical director for a tracking device company called Phantom, and we
Cool.
actually tracked and recovered stolen vehicles. So we'd have like little black boxes installed in there, which would like give us the GPS location of where the vehicle is and let us know if it's stolen. But yeah, a big thing was actually people breaking into cars either by like cloning the keys or actually plugging straight into the OBD port of the car and rewriting the firmware that's and the software that's actually on the ECU of the car, and then just basically kind of factory resetting it to their version of the keys and driving off with it. So yeah, I don't think we've actually talked about that, but yeah, I've actually was involved in a few products and stuff to stop that from happening.
Oh, and that was common then? That people just plugged in and took over the car and did whatever they want to do, and so
Oh
they.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's I think it's one of the biggest methods of apart from like kind of stealing the keys from somebody. It's one of the highest methods at the moment of stealing vehicles.
Wow, impressive! I've never
Yeah.
stolen a vehicle, so I have no experience in that. But
No,
I
no,
can get.
me neither.
I guess you can have some ECUs to lab on. I've seen people get those, and yeah, who knows? That would be
Yeah,
a cool thing. So you are a CTF developer because
yes.
you've been when in the earlier days of 2020 when the pandemic hit, I was
Mhm.
sitting on Saturdays and doing streams together with Ben Homsek.
Yeah,
And I don't know how we stumbled over it was named ctfchallenge.co.uk back then. Now
that's
it's
right. Yeah, yeah.
ctfchallenge.com. So
Yeah,
congratulations
yeah.
on the domain. Um, but what blew my mind is that how realistic these were, because I'm not a CTF player. I'm
Mhm.
far from an expert in that field. And I have mad respect to people that do all these CTFs when you have to do everything from, I don't know, stenography to
Mm.
cryptology to different kind of things and solving stuff. I'm not that kind of guy. So I'm really impressed when that happens. But when you dropped CTF challenges, that was something different because it had a recon segment. It had a segment where you were able to do real world challenges. What
Yeah.
inspired you to create that?
I just felt it was completely missing. So kind of seeing you guys, seeing like Ben's streams, and I just felt like a lot of the CTF challenges were very focused on just solving one like kind of small task. Sometimes they were totally unrealistic as well, like the steg challenges, like a password hidden in an image, and like as a web developer for 15 years, it's like, well, why would you ever do something like that? It's like, I completely understand it's training you and getting you to look at things, but it's not real world. It's not realistic at all. And also having kind of pages which are limited just to a couple of functions and you don't have subdomains. It's not how real businesses work. So I kind of felt like there's definitely something missing in the market here. And I think it was March 2019. I launched my first challenge.
You got about 11 challenges going on that page right now, over
Yeah,
74 flags.
yeah, that's
That's,
right. Yeah.
that's really impressive. The first one that you did, what was that?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I think that was Vulncorp, vulncorp.co.uk was my first one. and I just kind of put everything into it. I think that one might have about 12 different flags over various different subdomains, and it's got loads of different vulnerability types in there as well that you've got to get past. So they are quite a challenge. They are pretty difficult, but they're also kind of real world vulnerabilities that you'll find, and everything on the site's like web based, so it's all like OWASP type vulnerabilities that you'll come across. But yeah, kind of I always kind of keep true to the roots of keeping it really realistic.
I can't remember. Does it cost anything to play?
So I think there's about 6 or 7 challenges on there which are completely free to pay, and then just as it's getting more and more traffic on there, the costs are kind of going up to run it. So I have reserved some of them as premium challenges on there for you to play. I think at the moment it's just like £2.50 a month, which is next to nothing, just to support it and just keep me paying the bills.
Well, it should be. I mean, you're a creator, you do creative stuff, and creative should be paid for doing things. I have no issues with that. I think that's a good thing to have a free tier and a premium tier for people that want to get engaged. They can get engaged.
Yeah,
I think that seems very, very cool. And could you just explain the concept of a CTF for me? If I never done a CTF, what is a CTF?
Although I think my version of a CTF is probably quite different from the traditional version of a CTF. But you'll have some kind of challenge. Sometimes you'll have some kind of hints to what you've actually got to do with it. I mean, mine certainly are all web-based, but it's basically you'll have some kind of vulnerability that you'll have to get past and work out and solve. And at the end of that, you'll be presented with a flag. And then you can log that flag into a web portal somewhere and you'll get points for it.
Okay, so it's all about finding that flag. And what does a flag look like?
It can look like anything, to be honest. It's completely down to the creator, but most of the time it'll just be kind of the word flag and then brackets and then usually like an MD5 hash in there. But it can literally be anything, really. It can be any plain text.
So it's a way because if somebody tries to directly solve this challenge, they need to know what the flag would look like. Is that something CTFs normally do, that they give you the format, or do you need to figure that out as well?
Again, that can be a total mix. Like sometimes they'll let you know what the flag actually is going to look like. Sometimes when you actually discover the flag, kind of that might actually be obscured somehow or encrypted. And again, that can be another level of the CTF, is to try and crack that. Sometimes you end up down a rabbit hole and it's not actually the flag that you're looking for. But yeah, it depends how evil the creator of the challenge is.
Yeah, that brings me back to the evilness again, because that's my biggest experience with CTFs, is that they just feel evil. Somebody is somebody is creating this path or roadmap for you to travel, and along the way they're putting out some red herrings and then stuff that will make your life a little bit more miserable. Because they want to trick you to go down the wrong path, and then eventually, are CTF creators plainly just sadistic? Is that what it is?
Slightly. There's a slight element in there. And it's really interesting when you see the feedback and you see people playing, because you'll get feedback sometimes and it'll be like, oh, I went down a rabbit hole for 2 hours, and I was like, I didn't even know there was a rabbit hole. I try not to be too evil. Although the last one with HackerOne and TryHackMe, the Hacker of the Hill competition, I did actually build a couple of evil ones in there.
Tell me about that. Tell me all about that one. How did that come to play, and what was it?
Yeah, so as you probably know, I've been doing a lot of work with HackerOne over the past year. We had a little collaboration with TryHackMe called Hacker of the Hill. So we developed quite a few different challenges for them. I did all the web side of things, and then the staff at TryHackMe did like privilege escalation. So my side of the challenges would always end in some kind of remote code execution, usually leading to people getting a reverse shell, and then from there they'd have to upgrade the privileges to root. But yeah, TryHackMe sorted all the privilege escalation side out, and I did all the web side of it. But so we had easy, medium, and hard challenges, and each of the boxes had 3 different ways to actually get into them as well. So you'd have like different vulnerability taps in there to try and make your way through. And then we had, I'm trying to remember how many, I think it was maybe like 8 or 9 live streamers. We set up a big event, and all trying to crack it at the same time.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. So when you create that and you design that, do you start always from the vulnerability and go back? Or is it that you think about, okay, maybe I'm going to create this website? How do you build out the functionality? What drives you through the process?
My production method it's really different every time. Sometimes it'll be that I've got a vulnerability in mind and I build the whole challenge around that. Other times I'll be influenced by people in the community as well. Sometimes there might be a really good blog post, and then I think, that sounds really cool. I'm going to build that into it. I mean, there was I know one of them last year was Sam Curry's the Starbucks hack with the API traversal onto a private API. As soon as I heard of that, I was like, I'm definitely going to build that into it. I think that was pizza time. It was for HacktivityCon, and I put it into that challenge. So yeah, that's what I love about the community, is seeing all those different vulnerabilities come out, and then I will take a lot of influence from them and put them in there. Sometimes I'll know what a challenge wants to look like as well, or I might be given like a theme that I need to build to. So I'll plan out all the website, and then sometimes I'll sit on it for a couple of days and just not know where to go with it. And then suddenly inspiration will strike, and then I'm off, and I can't be stopped at that point. And I'll build it through that. But yeah, everyone, it's really, really different. But,
how do you host it? Is it inside a Docker container, or how do you? I mean, you built the challenge, spend a lot of time on this, and probably you start from some kind of framework or some kind of idea around it. Because if you're going to be realistic, you're going to be using something, and then you just put code on that. And how do you store it for future? Or are these just things that are available for a very, very short time, and then they're gone?
It's gone. So usually, I've got my own PHP framework, which I'm sure I'll get a load of hate for doing them in PHP, but it's my language and I love it. So yeah, I've got a framework which includes all things like templating, routing, so I can kind of get like going on it straight away to build up these challenges. With the TryHackMe stuff, I basically just supplied them with like the web files and gave them installation instructions. With some of the stuff that I've hosted myself, and like all CTF challenge things, are actually in Docker containers. They're just hosted like completely normal websites, which is kind of the scary part, because you have to make them just vulnerable enough, and for the people not to get a little bit too far on them that they could actually take over the box. But recently I've actually been working with Docker quite a lot as well. I've been really enjoying that. So I will actually be changing some of the vulnerability types that I put in there. And because Docker does give you that flexibility that you can start like putting RCE vulnerabilities in there, so people can actually execute code and get a shell on the system, but you're actually protecting the rest of your infrastructure as well. It's kind of a self-contained operating system on there. So I'm going to be having a lot of fun with building those things on there. But with the previous HackerOne challenges, they've just provided me a box on Amazon, and I've just kind of built it up from scratch, put everything that I need to on there, and then I just cross my fingers and hope it stays up.
Interesting, fun. So As far as I can tell by reading your tweets, you've been doing things for HackerOne this season. You did the Hacky Holidays, right?
Yes,
And
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, and might just be me reading through the lines, seeing what you retweet, but are you involved in Naham's Sex Udemy course?
Yes, yeah. Me and Ben have been working on that for quite a long time now.
Sick.
Um, yeah, so we've had some good fun with that. So yeah, gosh, it's probably been about 6 or 7 months we've been working on it. So Ben obviously did all the video content and let me know what kind of things he was going to put into there, and then I
Mhm.
built all the labs for it. So we've got two different labs. There's the ones that he uses on his video walkthroughs. It's just like really basic things. It's very kind of obvious what you're doing in there. Each vulnerability has its own like subdomain to it, and then you can just follow through his video and do that on your own machine as well. And then we've got another one which is hosted at TryHackMe, and that one's called Naham Store. And that one's like a full web application with subdomains on there, loads of different vulnerability types to get through. I don't think anybody's completed it yet. I think there's quite a few things that are hidden in there. But yeah, if you go through his course, you're going to pick up the skills that you need to complete that challenge. But yeah, there's every vulnerability that you can possibly think of, like website vulnerabilities, you'll find in that challenge.
Cool. That I'm very much inspired by the things that he's been doing, and I really like that you are a part of it because I have mad respect for the challenge that you built, and that's just going to add so much more to whoever decides to purchase that course to go through the process of actually having a place to practice on. And that's something that I really enjoyed with Pentester's Lab, right? It has a way for you to, you listen to Louis talk about something, then you have something to practice on, and that would level up your experience, and you will continue on. When we're talking about TryHackMe, I see people creating what is defined as rooms there. How does that work? Can anyone create a room, and if you do create a room, is it hard to do?
Yeah, so yeah, anybody has. They've got a really nice system over there, and it doesn't even actually cost you any money to start on TryHackMe as well. So you can sign up, you can do other people's challenges, but you can also create rooms yourself. So a room is basically a like kind of a single challenge, and you have a list of tasks on there to complete, and
Mhm.
you have free text options, so you can explain to the person taking on the challenge exactly kind of like what they need to do, how they need to set up the box, what things they need to look for. And you can do it in two different ways. You can either have walkthrough challenges, which is like a training experiment. So you'll go through a lab and it'll guide you step by step, and it'll teach you how to exploit certain vulnerabilities. Or it might just be a challenge on there. You've got no background information, you just get given an IP address, and that's it. And then you've kind of got to go for it. But when you're creating these labs, you'll create your own at home on a virtual machine. You'll export that and then upload it to TryHackMe, and then it
Oh,
just basically runs as a VM. And because it is a VM, you can put pretty much anything you want in there. Yeah, I really like the way that they work. It's a really nice system. And then you do like a guide, so that moderators can go through it. So you can either have a private room where you can give people an invite link, and then they'll get
hmm.
access to it. Or if you want it to be publicly listed by them as well, you need to give like their moderators a walkthrough. They'll go through it, make sure there's nothing weird or dodgy in there, and then it'll be released to their public as well.
Cool. Could you, as a creator, and this is just me wondering, could you
Mhm.
get paid to do that? Do people get paid to create challenges, or is it just voluntary work?
I believe it's just voluntary work. I mean, they might have the odd thing where they might get like a consultant in, but they've got their own content engineers who work on these challenges as well. So it's a mixture of their own work and people who just want to contribute to the community as well.
I think that's good enough. We'll start there. Hopefully, one day they'll
Yeah.
be in a situation where they say, okay, so you create a room over here. It's been creating a lot of traction. It's really nice. We're going to give you X amount of plays or something. I don't know, Spotify
Yeah,
kind of deal.
yeah, I think that'll be a really good way to go. I think that'll definitely encourage people to create longer boxes as well, like harder challenges.
Mm.
I think that might be a good way of going. Um, how they create the profit share on that is that's somebody else's job. I'm not quite sure
Yeah,
how
no,
that one will work, but it's a
I'm just
cool idea.
speculating. I'm just speculating, of
Yeah.
course, but I think, like you are since 2018, you've been self-employed, right? Am I right in that situation?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so how have you been? How what have you been doing to get by during those times? Like 2018 to 2021, we're right now. COVID hit smack in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
I what have you been doing for the last 3 years then?
Yeah, so when I started working for myself, I was still doing some hours for my old company as well. I held quite a crucial role there as a technical director, so I looked after all their infrastructure, a lot of their development work. So I was still
Mm.
doing bits for them. But I wanted to get out of there. I really have this passion for security, and I felt like it wasn't being fulfilled at all.
Mm.
So yeah, I wanted to go out and work on that side of things. And I just got introduced to a few different people. I was doing like small bits of work for different people. And then one of my old friends, Matt, who runs a company called Hacker House, and like he got me into helping with his student training portal, so that was really good fun. So he's got like a training portal which will teach you all about security as well, like but kind of the full spectrum of security as well. From there's OS in there, there's web vulnerabilities, Unix, mail systems, SSL, just the whole lot. He does. He's an absolute genius, that guy. So yeah, I helped out on the web development side of things. Got involved in a couple of pen tests as well, which they do as well. And then that kind of carried me through. That was kind of a bit of an off and on job. Then COVID. Actually, no. So before that, I started CTF Challenge because that's when I kind of identified I was getting a lot back more into security. I was watching your stuff, I was watching Ben's stuff, and all the other content creators out there doing awesome stuff.
Mm.
And yeah, that's when I kind of got into it. I saw what CTFs were available and what training labs were available, and as cool as they all were, they didn't reflect that kind of bug bounty scene where
Definitely not.
no, there was nothing in there which should get you ready for taking on a real company. And there was bits of stuff all separated, but nothing all together. And I thought, I'm going to do something. I didn't have much work on at the time. I've got my web development skills, I've got my security skills, and that was just kind of a good kind of amalgamation of the two skill sets for me to build these things out. So ctfchallenge.co.uk wasn't registered at the time. I thought that's an easy and obvious name. Get that registered, and yeah, set up my first challenge. And yeah, some people retweeted it. It got a little bit of traction, but not too much. Built some extra challenges on there. I think I ended up with maybe 4 challenges until probably like September time 2019. And then I dropped off quite a bit. I had a lot of work on, and to be honest, I totally burnt out. I was taking on a lot of work at that time. So kind of my side hobbies and side hustles kind of stopped for a while, and until like the next year, started ramping things up again, and then COVID hit. I got a phone call from my main contractor to say, stop working. We kind of don't need to do anything at the moment. So that was a lot of pressure. Suddenly, I had a lot more free time than I thought I would. Luckily, I managed to get a break on my mortgage payments as well to help me out. So we didn't have to bring in quite as much money. But yeah, it did leave us with quite a lot of free time. And I thought, I'm going to get back into CTF Challenge again. and start building some more stuff on there. And that's when I decided to send Ben a tweet, kind of calling him out a little bit, just saying, why don't you try some of these challenges, see how you do. And then that's kind of, it started our introduction as well. And it started from our streaming Saturdays, where you took on a CTF challenge every week, which was great fun.
It was hilarious. I mean, I still today think it's one of the best platforms when to get a real life experience.
Thank you.
Because it's so versatile. It has everything in there. It's everything from complex. You need to change some vulnerabilities. You need to do some recon on some vulnerabilities. It's that kind of real world scenario that you're looking through. That instead of just doing, let's say, the web application academy over at Portswigger, that compared to that, it's a different experience because. One, you don't know what you're doing. Two, you got some hints, but you need to figure it out. And so it gives you that bit of challenge and prepares you for the real world. But I also know that you've been involved in the Hacker 101 CTF. Am I right?
Yes, yeah, that's right. So a lot of the work that I've done for Hacker 1 on their CTF events, they've actually ended up as challenges on the Hacker 101 platform as well. And there's actually some more to come. We just finished up some API ones, which should be going on soon. And I'm just about to start work on some XXE labs as well.
Oh, love that. For anyone that doesn't know what Hacker 1 is, Hacker 1 is a bug bounty platform, and they have a training site called hacker101.com where you can do a couple of challenges. And if you complete those challenges, you will not only get good training on how to write a report and doing stuff, you also get the chance to win some private invites. So it's a way to level up your game and get some training for free, and then eventually, get some private invites and hack it stuff. And I like that initiative, and I'm really happy that you've been doing some work with them. So Hacker 101 is something that hopefully, is going to grow over time. And that is, of course, that's paid gig for you. So you're getting paid to do some work, and that's good because the things you learned, you can then later maybe, I don't know, invest into CTF challenges. It's a constant learning process for everyone that's doing creative work or development work. We learn new things all the time.
Yeah.
But wasn't it a Hacky Holidays challenge that you did?
Yeah, Hacky Holidays was over December, where we.
How did that work out?
Yeah, really good. Again, kind of going back to how I developed my CTFs, there was a lot of times where I got completely stuck and didn't know what to do next. But I managed to pull it all together, and we've got 12 challenges out there. So yeah, like I say, one was released every day at a certain time. And then that would kind of move you on to the next challenge. So you could take them on. It didn't matter if you didn't start it straight away. You could go back to the beginning and work your way through as well. But yeah, we got some really interesting challenges in there. I think I broke a lot of people from what we now call SQL Inception. Which is kind of nested SQL injection statements. So instead of returning data, it was basically a series of SQL commands which ran the previous results from the SQL commands. So when you do an SQL injection, sometimes you want to reflect data back onto the screen. So you'll use union statements to do that. So instead of actually reflecting back some information from the database, you'll actually reflect back another SQL injection command, which will then be used on the next command in the system. So you kind of you have to chain them together. But I mean, this was kind of I can't remember, day 10 or 11. So the challenges were getting a little bit wild. So this was actually chaining, I think there was SQL Inception to an SSRF, which you had to do content discovery with, and you had to get information from a private API, but the only way you could do that was from HTTP status codes, depending on what they return.
It was, it was blind in the end, and then
totally blind. Yes.
Oh, I love that. That's hilarious. What? So when you're sitting there and you're building this, and your evil genius on the inside just says, "Mwahaha, how can we do this?" Did you do that as a team? Were there a bunch of people involved in this, or was it just you?
No, it's just myself with this one. I mean, at the start of it, Ben gave me some ideas of what kind of vulnerabilities is what I see in there. We started off with some really easy stuff as well. So there's something for everyone in there. So some of the first ones were just some basic brute force attacks, and there's some kind of content discovery in there, and like API enumeration as well to find kind of hidden parameters, things like that. So yeah, the first few challenges were quite easy steps in there. But no, I was kind of that's why I love working with Ben and Hacker 101. I'm kind of left to it, and they kind of trust that I'll come up with something cool. So they just give me a brief description or tell me like who the event's kind of co-hosted with to give me a bit of influence, and I'll just kind of run with it and release it.
Oh, that's cool. And mad respect for HackerOne too, working with people in the community. I worked 100%. With them before. It's really cool that they're doing that. I think it's important to understand how important a hacker community is, and doing things like this where we're using people from within the industry and outside to create challenges to level up not only the people that are currently doing bounties, but the next coming generations. And that's why I'm hoping that you're going to be able to, even though these are like the pizza challenge or the other ones, that in some way in the future you get a possibility to store those for future generations. Because even though it feels like something that we create right now for this, like for an event or whatever, it's a craft and it's a challenge that's going to be very, very useful for people, maybe not years, but in the next coming couple of years, to test things out, practice stuff, because in the end we need to practice.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think a big part of it as well is you're not expected to know everything. There will 100% be times where you get completely stuck on a challenge and don't know how to take it any further. And that's the beauty of write-ups afterwards. People take a lot of effort in the community to go through and explain how they managed to get past this. And that's what you learn from. It's an awesome tool, and it's nice a lot of the time when people do CTFs after the event's closed. I mean, certainly just with NahamCon recently and John and his team, they keep that infrastructure up, even if it's kind of coming out of their own pocket as well, because they totally understand that people won't sleep if they don't manage to find the answers out to these things. So they keep the infrastructure up, they get to read write-ups, and they get to go through it, and you learn from it. It's brilliant.
I definitely read write-ups as literature. I enjoy that, sitting on my phone, and if it's a good one, I'm like, oh, nice. I'm scrolling through it, reading it. I'm not a CTF player. I don't do CTFs at all. I don't Pico CTF.
That's a throwback.
Yeah, but it's not the kind of thing that I do. It doesn't intrigue me. But the things that you've done, I think is fun because it's things that I can learn and use in realistic scenarios. I'm not saying in any way that CTFs are bad. I got nothing but super mega mad respect for the CTF players that spend nights after night after night to try to break challenges or compete in these things. I've seen some really impressive minds going at really professional, like the DEF CON ones or SecT or other ones. Those are hard challenges, and people that solve those, they're badass. So got nothing but mad respect from that. And some of my friends in Disturbance, like Andre or Definitely, 100% CTF backgrounds. That's what they did before. They were CTF players moving into bounties, but those are the guys that find the most insane change, the weirdest ones, because their minds work on a different kind of level. They're used to a sadistic CTF creator that's been doing some weird stuff, and they have to think outside the box over and over and over again to eventually find a thread that does something. So I think that's really, really, really cool.
Oh yeah, the amount of like effort they put into it, and the amount of that you must have to learn to crack some of these challenges. I mean, so for a long time, I've just been creating CTFs, but I've kind of jumped onto the other side now, and I've started doing quite a few myself. So I've been going through quite a lot of TryHackMe. I've been doing. I went through some of the challenges on the HamCon at the weekend as well. Although I didn't really have too much time, unfortunately. But yeah, it's really fun. It's really interesting, and I learn things. I pick things up as well, and now and again, it'll definitely give me some influence for some of the things that I might want to put into some of my own challenges as well.
And that's how it works. It doesn't matter if you're doing bounties. It doesn't matter if you're doing hack the box or try hack me or any kind of challenges. You always learning. And as a person that's dedicated my life to learning, that's what my life is meant to be. I want to learn new stuff all the time and then share the things that I learn with others. That's kind of in the end. Then I realized that that's my calling in life, because I love learning things. I'm a super fast learner. I pick up things instantly. My brain just works that way, and I'm very, very good at spotting anomalies or things that stick out that aren't right to be there and that kind of stuff. So for me as a person, I just kind of wish I had more time in my life to spend on doing these things. But then again, I don't own a TV. I rarely play any computer games. I rarely do CTFs. But instead, I do bounties instead. It might, because I want my time if I'm sitting down and doing a hobby, even though if I know, I think the biggest challenge for me with a CTF is that I know that it's going to be a way to hack this, and it's a way that it's designed by somebody. Somebody wants this to be done in a certain way, which kind of removes my creative freedom, because it's supposed to be solved in a certain manner. And what I like about bounties is the other one that I don't know. This might just not be vulnerable, or I might just find some new research that didn't exist there. Have you been doing CTF challenges where people solve the thing that you created, but in another way that you designed it for?
Oh, yeah. The good old unintentional solve.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like, oh, that's an interesting way of doing it. And then there's oh, you weren't supposed to do that. You've just solved it very easily. So I've only had one instance of a horrible unintentional solve where the challenge that I built probably had about 10 steps to it. And on step 4, they did something that I didn't think about, and they managed to jump all the way to step 10, which really disappointed me. So there's definitely a few different ways of doing it, but I do understand where you're coming from on the side of usually there is a pretty strict way of doing it, of how to solve that CTF challenge. But I find it's all about the buzz and the rush that you get from solving it. I imagine the bug bounty rush is similar to I've solved it CTF rush as well. And that's kind of what people are chasing as well. And that's why I've got back into it as well. I found that I was, doing a lot of creation, which is, basically web development. And I miss that rush. And talking about like the amount of time we have, I've got a lot of work on. I've got kids. It's a very, very small amount of time that I have available. And if things were different, I would probably spend a lot of time on bug bounty. But for that little amount of time that I do have available to myself, I want to chase that rush. I want to get that, and that's why I find myself on the CTF challenges as well, because I know there's something there. It's not just going to be kind of hitting my head against the wall for hours and hours to find out there was no vulnerability there whatsoever. I always know that there's going to be something there, and I can get that rush, and I can also cheat as well and read a write-up as well. And I get to learn the lesson afterwards.
Totally get that. Since money is a big driver for me. It's so weird. Everybody says, "No, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for the good faith of making internet secure." Blah blah blah. That's what I do at my job. That's what I do at my work. That's why I have a paid job to do that, to prevent breaches and do that kind of stuff. I'm securing the internet and creating cyber awareness that way. So if I'm gonna sit down and be in front of a computer, I spend most of my time in front of a computer. If I'm going to do that at night, it's either recreational for the fun of it, which means that I'm gonna, maybe I've been picking up and playing StarCraft again. I haven't done that for a couple of years, but I'm doing the campaigns again, and that just gives me total satisfaction of just doing something. And so I understand the gaming ability of doing a CTF. Like there's something in there. There's a chance that you might solve it. And if you don't solve it today, you can solve it tomorrow. It's not going to disappear. Correct. On bounties, on the other hand, if you don't find it, that's cool. But if you find it, you better report that son bitch right now, or somebody else is going to dupe you on it. And if you're lucky, that couple of months, because you can't say that I just sat down on the couch, I spent 15 minutes, I found a critical bug, I made 10K, whoa, I'm an elite hacker. That's not how it works. But maybe, you spent like 2 or 3 months dancing around with the target or learning how the target works. And then eventually you're going to be good at finding the anomalies, and you get into the mind of the developer. And then suddenly you sit down on the couch. Maybe your wife is doing something else. The kids are in bed. You're poking at the computer, and you realize this doesn't look right. What happened here? They changed this JavaScript, or it seems like something new came up. You poke at that, and voila, you have a bug, because developers push code all the time. Do you think that it's possible for a CTF player to get into the mind of a CTF creator? Do CTF creators have a certain kind of pattern, like an artist or a photographer? They take photos in a certain way. They have a certain kind of style. Is that something? Do you think it's
it's a thing? You're definitely onto something there. Yeah. The weirdest thing about it is, as a CTF creator, I kind of like to think that I don't, then that I'm not predictable. But then seeing people's feedback, I suddenly they'll be saying, "Oh, good, it's one of Adam's challenges." Like, "Oh, if you've done CTF challenge, you'll know what you're doing here," or something. I was like, I thought I came up with something completely original, but subconsciously I mustn't have. But yeah, I think there's definitely, like you say, there's some kind of signature to people's CTF challenges, and you probably do have a bit of a heads up and a bit of an advantage if you've taken on their challenges before in the past.
But then again, it's certain bug classes work a certain way. If you know how SSRF work, or if you know how content injection or header injection or XXEs, they work in certain ways. I'm particularly fond of XXEs and the way that they work. And since I've been doing a lot of them and I like that kind of style, certain things just sticks out to me. And I understand how they work, or how to implement and see endpoints that are potentially vulnerable for that kind of injection. Or
it's interesting.
You spend time with it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned before that you can just spot stuff. And it's, people talk about that, doing something for 10,000 hours and you can kind of class yourself as an expert in it. And I'm a real firm believer of that. Some of the stuff that I find, some of the CTFs that I do as well, it's really hard to explain it to somebody how you actually do it. It's kind of like driving a car, really. It'd be difficult to talk through somebody like blindly how to drive a car to a certain place, like when to turn, when to put the indicators on, when to change gear. But doing it yourself, it just comes really natural. You just know it's there. I have this really weird ability to go on a website and I'll automatically know whether it's like a WordPress website without looking at the source code or anything. It's just, I don't know. I think it's some kind of Jedi mind skill or something.
No, I understand what you mean, because it could be a simple identification like a fav icon, or it could be a simple way that you see some kind of endpoint, like when you're doing content discovery, that one thing that you recognize, like these patterns that you will see that, oh, I've seen this before, that leads me down that kind of rabbit hole, and you're looking for certain stuff. I think that is a very, very interesting aspect about the learning process. So if somebody wanted to do CTFs, what do you need? What do you need to do CTFs?
Not much. An internet connection, or as we've learned this past weekend, all you need is a phone. As somebody managed to do quite a lot of the NahamCon CTF just on a mobile phone, which is pretty amazing. And I believe he's going to be upgrading to a laptop as well, thanks to Youre, which is completely awesome of him.
That's sick. So he's gifting him a laptop because that hacker didn't have any.
Yeah, because he didn't have any. He heard about it. He was massively impressed with how far he managed to get in the CTF without a computer and just do it on his phone. And he's sending him out a laptop, which is totally awesome.
He's such a gentleman. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so cool to hear. I love that. That's a great initiative, and he has a history of doing that kind of giving back to the public. Yeah. He's running almost the same kind of thing that you have, though. Over at bugbountyhunter.com, he has member servers where you can play on a website called, I think it's called Baker.
Yeah, his application Baker. That's right. Yeah, where kind of. Yeah, I have indeed. Yeah, me and Sean actually spoke a little bit before he released it, and I got a little bit of a pre-trial as well. Because he's seen some of the stuff that I'd done and really liked it. We may do some work one day in the future. I don't know. We did chat about that.
Fingers crossed, my man. Fingers crossed.
It's nice to do some stuff together. But yeah, I absolutely love his platform. He's totally come at it the same way why I like CTF Challenge, and he's created like a whole application on there. Don't know if he's done any. I don't think he's done any kind of recon type thing, but then again, that's not Youre. He's all about learning exactly how that application works. I love watching his talks and how he talks about things, and like we mentioned before, he just spots stuff straight away. He did a recent one with Ben just a few weeks ago, where they went over Rockstar Games, and just some of the stuff that he was coming out with was absolutely awesome. So yeah, on his platform, bugbountyhunter.com, you can sign up on there and extra. So it's not just kind of like a CTF where you'd find flags in there. He's actually set up this whole mock triage on there. So you'll have to write reports, which him himself will go through. He'll give feedback of how to give a proper report on there. So it is full on proper bug bounty training. It's a really good service that he does. Yeah, highly recommend that people look at that.
And I think it's only 250 euros for lifetime access.
Lifetime access, yeah.
I got his book here, his methodology, and I've been friends with Sean for a long while. Mad respect to that gentleman and the things that he does, and he's living on doing this. He's doing bounties. He's running his stuff as a developer, and I think it's awesome when you see people that are self-employed like yourself that decides to give themselves that freedom to be creative and to control their own time and do certain stuff. I did quit my job after 17 years in November 2019, and because I was planning on going to all these live hacking events, then COVID hit, and I realized
Change your
Why?
plan.
So I needed to figure out what I wanted to do for a year.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of content creation, done a lot of bounties, doing consultancy work because I have a lot of years of experience doing consultancy and advisory, and now I'm working with threat intelligence over at TruSec. So I'm going back to the blue side again. I love offensive work. But to be, in my humble opinion, to be a very good incident response person, you need to have years of training in the offensive side to understand, you see a web shell. How did that end up there? Like,
yeah.
Or you need to be able to trace back and figure it out. So it's like semi-pen testing reverse on the fly, because because you have X amount of, you don't know how many attackers that are in the system. You know that they are there, and they haven't started their encryption again yet, or maybe they've started. Maybe you get in there and everything's just wiped. Where do we find the backups? How can we get the system back up and running? But sometimes you get in and they're just there being dormant, or have multiple of C2 channels to avoid detection, and you need to do a full kick out. And if you're doing a full kick out, you need to really know that you're actually kicking out everyone at the same time. So you need to spend some time identifying what's going on, which route did they take in, reversing all the things, and then eventually, kicking them out. So offensive work kind of feeds into what I call active defense, when you're actively working on, making sure that systems are safe.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you've got to get inside the head of your potential adversary to know what type of things that they'll do. The blue team stuff that just totally blows my mind. It's something I haven't got into myself whatsoever. It's on the list of things to do. I'd definitely like to learn more about it. That's for sure.
I love it. I've spent most of my time on the blue side, but I did 7 years on the offensive, and now I'm back on the blue again, because it always
more purple.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely more purple, but definitely more purple. But having that feeling of being. But have you seen any? Are there any blue team kind of CTFs? Have you seen any of those? Defend ones?
I don't know a lot about them, but I 100% have heard of them. I mean, kind of going back to TryHackMe, they have their King of the Hill, where there's a little bit of blue team side to that as well. So kind of you get in, so you'll have a box which has multiple vulnerabilities to it, and once you exploit a vulnerability, you can actually patch it to stop other people getting in as well. So that's definitely taking on like a little bit of the blue side as well. But yeah, I couldn't name one off the top of my head, but I 100% have seen blue team CTF events out there.
There definitely are. I couldn't name one either because I'm not a CTF player, but I was curious.
I don't know if they kind of get the limelight that they deserve. I think that definitely the spotlight's on the red team side of things. It's kind of seen as the exciting and sexy kind of side of InfoSec, but there's a massive spectrum to InfoSec. I mean, you don't have to be hacking boxes as well to be involved in the InfoSec side of things. There's so many different things in like a career path that you can do in InfoSec.
No, definitely, and being able to, but then again, we are primarily talking about CTFs here, which are offensive, and the things that you do are definitely, they're bounty related. It's real world web application hacking. And so I understand the niche. I used to remember in the beginning that we talked about the hacker house. What was that? What did you guys do there?
Hacker House was it's like a student training portal to teach them like pretty much everything there is in security. So you'd kind of go in there with basic knowledge of IT, but not particularly security. So it really suits people who want to move over into the security field.
Mm.
It's full of labs, full of training by Matt, who's just awesome at what he does.
Is it
And you can
virtual, or is it in on site, or is it a place where you go, or is it an online
They do
training thing?
both. I mean, as everything is at the moment, everything's online.
Oh yeah.
But previously, they've held like kind of 5 day events, kind of
Mm.
dotted all over the world, really. So you'd go there and you'd personally kind of go through the whole course contents with them,
Mm.
which is a really good way of doing it, because if you get stuck, you can ask questions and you can have a lot more feedback on there. But yeah, you can certainly sign up to it, have access to all the labs. There's kind of exams as well at the end of it. You get like a certificate as well to say that you kind of fully understand what you've done on there. But yeah, it's a great training course.
I really like that. There's probably, a plethora of different training places where people can go and practice stuff. Like, I mean, just getting the OSCP is a good thing for anyone that's interested in getting started, right? But today, there's so much content that you can do for free. Getting a TryHackMe or Hack the Box subscription, that's not a lot of money. I think it's like $100 or $10 a month or
A
something
month or something, yeah.
for TryHackMe, and then you get access to everything you need, even virtual boxes that you just spin up and hack from if you don't have your own shell or
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you'll get pretty much like a Kali box on there. So you've got the tools on there all already on their network, which again is a really nice way of doing it. And I think you still get access to that as well with a free account as well, which
cool.
is really good. Than this, they're really good supporters of the community. But there's the with that paid subscription, you get a lot more access as well. And I think they do like whole kind of courses as well that you have to go through.
And I
Which
know
is
they have something called Web Essentials, and that's a like 40 hours training where you can learn the basic, and you have the OWASP top 10 trainings that are free, and so
right,
there's
yeah.
a lot of things. But enough about them. if one simply wanted to start creating CTFs today, what kind of training would you recommend people to get, or how do one get started in creating CTFs?
Ooh, so for creating CTFs, I suppose it depends what you want to do.
I don't
Obviously,
know. Any kind of CTF. If I wanted to today create a challenge for a couple of my friends that I want them to hack on, or maybe you have a company and you want to have that testing thing that when you employ people, or can they do the CTF or so? What would you
yeah.
recommend people to do?
So, I mean, if you want to create one from scratch, again, like I say, it depends what kind of you want to test them on. If you were employing people to be like Linux sysadmins or Linux security, then you'd very much concentrate on operating system based things. So, it could be the fact that you're giving shell access. You might actually hide something in there. Something might be given the permissions that it shouldn't be.
Mm.
Then you can use things like, so you can scan the system for kind of things that are run as root, and then you can use services like GTFO bin to then find out how you can escalate your privileges. So it could be as simple as something as setting up a virtual machine and then giving something permissions that really shouldn't have permissions on there, and then you could give people SSH access. So that'd be the quickest and easiest way to create a challenge.
Mm.
As for web type stuff, you are going to need a background in web development to be able to create those. But again, you don't have to learn loads of stuff. You could very quickly create like an SQL injection challenge on there,
Mm.
just by the pages don't have to look like a real company. It could just literally just be a page with an input box on it which says, "What is your name?" or search for something. And it goes off in the background, does a simple SQL search, but you've programmed it in such a way where it is actually injectable. So you could actually turn around a CTF challenge quite quickly, but then it gets to the more advanced ones. You do need to know that security side of how to implement it. And the scariest thing is creating them just vulnerable enough. So people, if you don't have a good background in it, you might not understand that you can actually leverage further access from the vulnerability that they've put on. You know, maybe you've innocently gone in there thinking, oh, I'll just do a simple SQL injection in there, but then you might have put an old version of MySQL Server on there where you can actually execute remote commands on the system, and then suddenly they're actually for a system and go, or maybe you can write out to files and overwrite important things. So yeah, you do need to have that kind of in-depth knowledge of exactly how things work. So I mean people like John Hammond, his team, Conganator, Trevor and Caleb, that they make really awesome stuff, but they work on both sides as well. So you know, John's as good a hacker as he is a CTF creator as well. He does an amazing job with his stuff. I think you do need to know those both sides to make decent CTF challenges.
I think that's, yeah, John's work. Oh, that's hats off, right? But I really enjoyed, you know, some of the XXS challenges that Inti over Integrity has been doing. You know, there's some pretty evil XXS challenges that he's been putting out every now and then. Those are pretty devious.
Oh yeah, there's nothing more that gives me imposter syndrome than doing their XSS challenges. Right? They totally break me, their XSS challenges.
And then you get a write-up or a video where Tom just breaks it down, or I was lucky enough to get Inti on my show to teach me how to do one, and I don't do XXSs at all, or I dabble with them, but just seeing the way, you know, that his mind worked out, and all these guys, when they do stuff, use kind of things that they learned in real life and just jazzing them up a bit and creating challenges out of it. Because that's in the bounty space. In the end, then we want to level people up so they can find the really hard vulnerabilities, and not all of it is made by design.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's taking a real deep dive into it. It's not just, you know, something being reflected on the screen and you've got a nice reflected XSS and it's nice and easy. You do need to have a good, deep understanding of JavaScript to take on those challenges. So some of the things, you know, I've tried them, I've got to a certain point on there, and then I've just kind of banged my head against the wall for 2 hours, and then I have to give up. I haven't got enough time.
You just file description, just rides in like so, and then solves it in 2 seconds, because some people are just badass at certain stuff, and it's very, it's amazing and cool stuff. Definitely. Wow, I've learned a lot of stuff, Adam. It's been awesome to talking with you about CTFs and challenges and life, and I had a really good time. I hope to see you soon again, my friend.
Yes, definitely, sir. Definitely.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Cool. You too, man. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, that wasn't a bite size of a conversation, but I learned heaps from that. And I'm very grateful that Adam decided to invest, you know, over an hour with me to just talk about life and certain stuff. So good, so good. If you want to see more of these kind of things, I need to get that kind of feedback. So it's important that you comment below if you liked it, or if you want me to have this conversation with other people. If not, that's cool too. This is just an experiment like everything else that I do. So, well, until next time, I'll see you around, and stay curious.